Hey everyone, Travis here with Tax Talk with Travis. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be continuing my series on the Payroll Protection Program, and today I'm going to go over some very important calculations, and that's how to calculate the FTE, which stands for full-time equivalents. This is very important because the full-time equivalents are something that is calculated as part of your loan forgiveness. You have to calculate your FTE during the 8-week period that you're spending the money from the PPP loan, and compare that to the FTE in your baseline calculation. If that FTE has gone down and you don't qualify for the exceptions, you will be docked and will not be able to get loan forgiveness on all of your loan. This FTE calculation was originally not clear because the SBA and Congress and Senate did not come out and say what was considered a full FTE. Many people were thinking it was maybe going to be 32 hours. Many people were thinking it was going to be 36. Luckily, the SBA did come out later and gave us clarification and said that for someone to be a full FTE, they need to be a 40-hour employee. And so there's two different periods. First, you want to calculate your baseline FTE. If you haven't calculated that already, you should, because that's the number that you're targeting in your 8-week period. This can either be February 15th of 2019 through June 30th of 2019, or January 1st of 2020 through February 29th of 2020. You're going to want to do both of these calculations and then choose whichever number is less, and that will be your baseline. You're going to use the number that's less because obviously it's less FTE that you have to target in the 8-week period where you're spending the PPP funds. Because like I said earlier, if you don't spend the money correctly, and if your FTE doesn't reach the point where it was prior to everything happening, you will not get full loan forgiveness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple calculations of how these different methods can really help you out. For calculating the FTE during the 8-week spending period, the SBA was nice and actually gave you two different options. One, you can just take each employee's hours during the 8-week period, take them weekly, and then divide it by 40 and come up with the FTE that way. So obviously if you have someone that works 40 hours a week, that would be 1 FTE. If they work 20 hours a week, that would be 0.5 FTE. What some people asked for was they wanted an easier way to calculate the FTE. So SBA decided you can do two methods. You can either do the actual calculation for everyone and come up with a decimal number, and that can be your calculation. Or for every employee that doesn't work 40 hours a week, you can just count them as a half FTE. And so I'm going to go through an example of how calculating that incorrectly can get you loan forgiveness docked, and then how calculating it correctly will help you meet your baseline. So let's go into that example. So as you can see here, this ABC employer has 10 employees. We have our 8 weeks right here. And so ABC employer calculated their baseline FTE. And so their baseline FTE using the February 15th of 2019 through June 30th of 2019 gave them 8. But doing it through January 1st of 2020 through February 29th of 2020 gave them 7.5. And so our baseline FTE for ABC employer is going to be 7.5. So as you can see, ABC employer has 10 employees. The first 5 all work 40 hours a week, and so obviously that's going to be 5 full FTE for those 5 employees. The next 5 is when things get interesting because these employees work various hours throughout the week. So you can see if you average all of these employees together and all of their hours, you would come up with a calculation of roughly 2.344 FTE. And so when you add that to the first 5, you'd get 7.344 FTE. Now, as we talked about earlier, our baseline is 7.5, and so obviously 7.344 is less than 7.5. And so you would be docked the percentage that your FTE has gone down. However, using the other method where you just count each employee that's under 40 hours as 0.5 FTE, we have our 0.5 over here, and those 5 employees, each counting as 0.5 FTE, gives us 2.5 FTE. And so when we add that 2.5 to our 5 from up here, we get 7.5 FTE, which matches our baseline. And so there's no loan forgiveness docked. And so obviously using the alternate calculation where they just include each employee who works under 40 as half an FTE would be best for ABC employer. And then I really want to quickly go over, there are some exceptions to the rule if your FTE does drop. Like let's say, for instance, employee 8 decided to quit halfway through the 8-week period. And so all of a sudden they've got 0 hours here. If an employee does voluntarily quit, they do not count against your FTE. So there's 4 exceptions to the FTE calculation. If someone is fired for cause, if someone voluntarily resigns, if someone requests a reduction in hours, or if you made a good faith offer to an employee to come back and they decide not to come back, none of those work against you when you're calculating your FTE. And so, excuse me. So as you calculate your FTE, you need to have documentation for each employee who meets these certain criteria. We've had here at my firm, we had someone that retired, and so they are no longer with us. We have not replaced that position yet, and so we've documented that she voluntarily retired, and so that FTE, if we were doing a calculation for us, that would not work against us. If someone was working 40 hours and they have a child at home now that they have to care for, and so now they need to cut back to 15 or 20 hours, I recommend having a signed document from that employee requesting the reduction in hours. If someone's fired for cause, obviously you're going to have that documented just for HR reasons, but make sure you have that documented. And then making a good faith offer. That should be either in writing or via email that you offered the job back to the employee. And then I would also have it in writing that they turned down the job offer and are not coming back. So as long as you have one of those four, your FTE can be less than your baseline FTE, and you can get an exemption from the docking. So the way it works with your FTE getting docked, let's say this alternative method didn't exist and this ABC employer only had 7.344. What you have to do is you have to take the difference and then divide that by the baseline FTE. And so this difference is roughly 2%. And so let's just say, for example, they had $100,000 of FTE of PPP money. You would take that 100,000, and they would lose roughly almost $2,100 of loan forgiveness because of their drop in FTE. In this example, employee 8 decided to quit, and so they, their FTE dropped, and so it's fine. But you want to have all of your options on the table. And so that's why it's so important for those of you that have the loan money right now to calculate your baseline FTE right now so that you know what number you're shooting for over the next couple weeks. Whether you're in week 2 of your loan, week 5, or even week 7, you need to calculate that number right now so that you can make adjustments as needed. All right, thanks again for visiting my channel. Hope this was helpful in calculating FTE. I'm going to be doing more videos on the Paycheck Protection Program, including going over the loan forgiveness documents and how to fill those out correctly. If you enjoyed this material, please subscribe and you will get notifications for future videos. Thank you so much.